Well, welcome everybody to Tosot time. And we have a very special guest with us today. I just got to read you some of his resume before I actually introduce our guest. This gentleman was the NASCAR Pinty Series Rookie of the Year in 2015, has 4 NASCAR pole positions and 2 lap records, has 1 NASCAR win, third place finishes, multiple top fives, 3 Sports Car Vintage Racing Association Indianapolis Motor Speedway wins, driver for Rowdy himself, Kyle Busch Motorsports in the Truck Series. That's a big one. That's a tough guy to run for. Multiple national go-kart championship wins, and all race car drivers, best I can tell, from F1 to sprint cars to NASCAR, all seem to start in karting. Top 5 NASCAR Pinty Series championship points, and 1 NASCAR Monster Energy Series start. And that is one heck of a resume for our guest, Mr. Gary Klutt. Gary, say hello to everybody.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Well, first of all, Gary, welcome to Tosot Time. An absolute treat to have you here as our guest. I want to start with a little bit about your background. Obviously, I've given our audience your race car driving resume, or really just a portion of it. But if you can take us back, and what got you into racing to begin with? Where did it all start for you?
It all started in go-karts. I was 7 years old. We actually went up to watch one of the biggest karting events in our local area here in Ontario, which was the Barrie Grand Prix. And the next year, I think my dad asked me, "Do you want to start racing go-karts?" And what 6 or 7-year-old boy doesn't want to start racing go-karts? So he bought me a little go-kart, and we would go practice in the go train parking lot on Saturday mornings really early. He'd set up some water bottles, and we'd go run around, and then from there started racing, and had some success and kept moving up until really I was 15, and won the Canadian Nationals, 15 or 16, and that was kind of the end of the go-kart career, and then the jump to race cars.
Wow. So I am right in saying that virtually all racers, no matter what the series, no matter what the form, open wheel, closed wheel, whatever it may be, off road, everybody seems to start in karting nowadays. Is that right?
For sure. I think you learn so much so quickly in a go-kart. The racing is so good. You're lucky in a full-size car race to get however many passes, 1 or 2 passes a race. But in a go-kart race, you could be passing someone multiple times a lap, and it just condenses that learning curve and really builds racecraft. You're running nose to tail from the time you're 7 till the time you're out of karting, and you've got a huge jump on just being a good racer as opposed to just being someone who can drive fast on the track.
Yeah. I have to give your parents credit for allowing you to do it at such a young age. I'm not a parent, but if I were, I think my heart would be in my mouth every time my kid got into a kart at the age of 7, because every once in a while those things run over each other, right?
Yeah, I mean, they don't. It's like go-karts and snowmobiles over the years. Those are the 2 items that don't really get any safer. They just get faster. Uh,
Right.
so yeah, no, a huge amount of trust. And I think probably some naivety on my mom's end.
Yeah. Well, look, Gary, before I ever knew you as a race car driver, I knew you and your dad from the TV show Dream Car Garage. Can you tell our audience a little bit about the history of the show and where they can see the show, if it still exists? I know it exists in some other format, but where can they see it today? Tell us a little bit about the history of the show, if you would.
Yeah, so it kind of fell into my dad's lap by accident. He was in 1998. He was asked to do a segment on a show, and then I think a year or 2 later, the guy didn't want to continue doing the show, and my dad got the opportunity to buy him out and continue running a car show. And this was pretty early on. This was well before Orange County and all the kind of rise of the restoration show. So he did that from 1999, and then our last season we did of Legendary Motorcar was 2016. So a serious run, learning a lot along the way. Really riding that wave of car show through Speed Vision to Discovery's Velocity Channel. And it had a pretty big impact on the business. Not free marketing, but being actually paid to get your name out there really helps.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as you mentioned, you guys predated all the shows like Gas Monkey and Chasing Classic Cars. They all came after you guys. So you guys were really breaking new ground with the show.
Yeah. So, we kind of, as TV, as I'm sure you and your listeners know, TV is slowly dying as far as cable TV and satellite TV.
Yeah.
So when that kind of fizzled out, we decided we were going to go to YouTube. So we do bits here and there on YouTube of new stuff, and then we release a lot of that old stuff, which is now at least 20 years old, some of the footage. So it's really enjoyable these days to look back at these cars and kick yourself a little bit for not buying a lot of them.
Well, you guys bought a lot of them, but I remember seeing an episode recently of the old show with you with a mustache doing a good Dale Earnhardt Sr.
Yes, yeah.
I'm sure you remember that one.
For sure. A couple of years back. I think it was during COVID, so you could get away with, well, you've got the long hair, but me not getting a haircut and not trimming my mustache. So we had fun during that. My dad thought it was ridiculous. So
he did. He actually mentioned he thought it was ridiculous. Yes. Well, Gary, currently you're racing in the NASCAR Pinty Series in Canada. Can you tell us a little bit about the Pinty Series, the locations, major sponsors, that kind of thing? Kind of fill us in for those of us who are not familiar with the Pinty Series up in Canada.
Yeah, so the premier stock car series from probably the 70s or 80s on was CASCAR, and it was really the championship in Canada. And NASCAR came up and bought the series in 2006, put their name on it, moved an office up here, and really, went to town on it. So as far it is the Canadian championship. We run at all the big tracks in Canada, almost coast to coast. We were out in Newfoundland this year, as far west as Edmonton, and then the major tracks here, close to my place here are CTMP, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, what was Mosport, and we race at the Toronto Indy, downtown Toronto. So all the big venues, and it really is an end in itself here in Canada. A lot of the NASCAR series that aren't the Cup series down in the States are really seen as a stepping stone. But here, a lot of guys come from IndyCar. Villeneuve has raced with us for at least a season and a couple one-off races. So it's really a spot to stay and make a career out of it as a Canadian.
Yeah, very cool. I did not realize you guys went as far west as Edmonton.
Yeah, no, NASCAR really wants to make it a full national series, and get every province involved in every major city. So, no, it's a neat series and a busy summer driving the rig all around Canada.
Cool. Well, Gary, can you tell us a little bit about the car itself in the Pinty Series? What series in NASCAR US would you compare the car to? Is it similar to the ARCA series, Xfinity, Cup? How would you compare it, if you would? Or maybe it's an entity all to its own, please.
Yeah, there's aspects of different cars that it's similar to. So, I mean, the car is probably pretty similar to the ARCA car.
Right.
We're a little bit lighter, and you know, not to kind of toot the series horn, but we run the same weekend as the NASCAR trucks at the same track the odd time, and the used to run it at Montreal at the F1 track the same weekend as the Xfinity series, and we'd only be, a couple, not even, a second off of their pace. And the guy who usually qualified first in the Pinty series, that was pretty much a good enough time to be in the top 5 or the top 10 in the other car. So we've got him working well, and there's a lot of years and R&D that have gone into making these cars perform, as overachievers, really.
Yeah. We refer to it as the Pinty's series. Who's Pinty?
Yeah.
What is Pinty?
Yeah. So I think they're actually going to change it to the Canadian NASCAR series. Just
That sounds better.
It does sound better. It does sound better. But
Yeah.
Pinty's is a Canadian company. They do kind of sports bar type food at home, frozen chicken wings, stuff like that. And most Canadians will recognize Pinty's because of what they've done for curling. They did the same thing for curling as they're currently working on with the Canadian NASCAR series. They've brought it into prime time. It does better numbers on TV than a lot of the NHL hockey games. They are a marketing machine, and they know what they're doing. So they are people who enjoy watching sports on TV. Goes hand in hand with their products.
Well, wow, curling and NASCAR, man, if that isn't the different spectrums of sports, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, every year, and I've done it 2 or 3 times now. They bring out the Canadian Olympic curling teams, and then a bunch of race car drivers, and we go curling together. So it's pretty impressive to see those guys perform, because I'm out there kind of feeling like Bambi on the ice.
Well, I think it's better that race car drivers do curling as opposed to curling guys doing race cars. That probably safer that way.
I
Right?
would say the outcome is probably a little bit better.
Right, absolutely. Gary, you drive for RGC Sports, which is the sports division of Rinamato Group of companies. And I understand that they are a very large Greater Toronto area real estate development company. Can you fill in our audience a little bit about RGC and about Rinamato, what they do, and how they kind of fit into the sponsorship for you guys?
Yeah, RGC Sports, they've really came out swinging. TJ Rinamato kind of heads up that deal, and they're a big group of companies that build, from acquisition of land all the way up, with a whole ton of their companies involved. They build millions of square feet every year. They're involved in every aspect of the build, and kind of everything they look at, they'll build a company around. So TJ, the serious businessman that he is, saw this opportunity and saw some value in the marketing behind it, and built a race team around it, and really went in guns a-blazing, hired a couple people, and bought a whole ton of TSN advertising space, and hired 3 young race car drivers, myself included, going out there, really trying to win races, and provide value for his sponsors. So there's a group of companies, and a good group of people every weekend cheering us on. So it's made the last year very enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, look, there seems to be some clear synergy between Rinamato and what we do at Tosot Bathica, along with our distributor partners in Canada. And with that said, Gary, if you would talk to me about race sponsorship in the Pinty series, what benefits does sponsorship bring to companies that may be looking to sponsor a team for the season, or maybe an individual race?
Yeah, so I mean, there's so many different ways sponsorship is formed, and different benefits depending on the company. A lot of deals get done as you were kind of alluding to, in that B2B space, in the business to business
Yeah.
space, really connecting different companies at the track, using it as a venue. And then there's also, on the other hand, there's direct to consumer companies that go out there and just are looking at the eyeballs, looking at that aspect. So there are companies where I've had sponsors in the past where, one, all they care about is bringing their customers, or most times their customers or their employees out, and giving them the full VIP treatment, just as people would buy a box at an NHL game, and having a horse in the race essentially to cheer on. But as far as the viewership goes, yeah, I mean, it is pretty big. It's actually astounding how many people watch the NASCAR series in Canada. They'll do about, just on the TV side alone, they'll do about 3.7 million impressions for the season. And then here, actually, we've got a pretty big marketing machine at Legendary Motorcar, so we'll probably triple
Oh,
that
yeah.
in views.
Yeah. Here in the States, I see the Pinty series on TSN, the cable network TSN, and also live streaming on Flow Racing. And I know Flow Racing is huge in all types of series of races. So you guys do have a definite footprint here in the States as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And worldwide, I kind of keep my finger on the pulse of race fans, and people from all over the world love the Pinty series because it is such good racing, and really like no other. As far as having street courses, this will be the first year that the Cup Series is going to do a street course in 2023. But we've been racing in the streets of Toronto for quite some time, and it's a neat deal running down Lakeshore next to Lake Ontario in a NASCAR.
Wow, I didn't know that you guys were going to have a street race. Obviously NASCAR in the US is going to be in Chicago, I believe, in 2023. So yeah, road courses seem to be the way all the series are going. Even F1, right? F1 is going to be in Miami, going to be in Vegas. So yeah, I guess it kind of brings racing literally to the people, right? When you're in the streets.
Absolutely. And the backdrops for these races, as you see them on TV, you see a skyscraper in the background. And yeah, like you said, bringing races to big city centers is great for everyone involved.
Yeah. Hey, look, Gary, I understand that sponsorship can be tailored to a single race or an entire season of racing. Also, you may have several sponsors at a single race, a primary sponsor that covers most of the car with their logo, but secondary sponsors with less coverage. Am I saying that right? I guess what I'm asking is, are there multiple levels? Does the sponsor have to be all over the car, have to be the primary sponsor, or do you have secondary sponsors as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Running a race car is frankly expensive, capital intensive.
Yes.
So yeah, there's totally different levels to sponsorship. Yeah, you said it correctly. Primary is the guy on the sponsorship on the hood, on the quarter panels, and then there's so many different ways to skin a cat. There's I have Scott Sports eyewear, and they're on my helmet as my sunglasses sponsor. And then there's deals where you will be just in front of the onboard camera. The logo's just there, and you don't even see it
Yep.
from the outside of the car. And then all the way to wrapping the whole car, full race suit, the trailer's wrapped, the pit crew coming over the wall, they're wearing your logo. So there's so many different billboards essentially to put a
Sure.
logo on.
Yeah, very, very cool. A lot of different opportunities, and I would imagine at many different cost levels, right?
Absolutely. All the way from local enthusiasts, guys who run small businesses who really want to be involved. There's a spot for them, all the way up to multinational corporations, and there's a spot for them as well.
When I was your guest at Canadian Motorsports Park the fall of last year, I saw Alex Tagliani,
Yep.
with, I mean, he has some experience in F1, in running the Pinty series now. But tell me if I'm wrong. His sponsor is it Viagra?
Yeah, Tagliani. So he was the Indy 500 pole sitter, and he's a Canadian guy who's made a living racing IndyCar for a lot of years. And so he races
Yeah.
the Pinty series full time, and now he's in his early 40s. So he's he's landed the Viagra deal. And I there's always jokes around the paddock for sure, but yeah, he does a good job with it, and he's got a lot of support out of Quebec. He's got Saint Hubert on the car and EpiPen, and yeah, he's in the Viagra car. So we have some fun with him talking about that.
I think it was Mark Martin some time back in the NASCAR series. Now I'm going back with Mark Martin, but I believe he was the first one to have the Viagra, right? And I think it takes some courage to drive a Viagra car, but that's all I'll say about that. I'm sure everyone's heard all the jokes. Right?
I'm still young yet. I'm not there yet.
There you go. Good for you. Well, Gary, please tell our audience what your expectations are for the NASCAR Pinty Series in 2023. What are you looking to improve upon? What are your goals? What are your expectations? Tell us.
Yeah, the expectations for sure about half of the races are road courses, whether it be on the streets or on the road. And we've got the track record at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park at Mossport, and we always run in the top 3 there. The Toronto, we finished 4th, running 3rd at Three Rivers. So those road courses, we show up with really just expecting to win those races. As far as the ovals go, we had a handful of top 5s. So looking to improve a little bit there, but we, again, you're not a racer if you're not showing up with the expectation that you can win. The ovals, we had a handful of top 5s. Showed some great improvements this year. As a young boy racing go-karts, wasn't really exposed to the ovals, so I came into the series having to learn the ovals in 2015 and 2016. But we got a 5th place finish out in Newfoundland, and qualified 4th at Ohsweken there, running 3rd in Edmonton. You really wouldn't be a race car driver if you didn't show up expecting to win. So, I mean, frankly, pretty much everywhere we go, the goal is to wave the checkered flag at the end of the day.
Absolutely. No matter what business you're in, right? You want the checkered flag at the end of the day for sure.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you, Gary, NASCAR, I see getting into dirt ovals from time to time now. Bristol, they throw dirt over the asphalt, which is crazy. But do you guys do any dirt racing up there in the Pinty series?
Yeah, so we did our first dirt race was last year at Ohsweken, which is a pretty major track in Canada. They run the World of Outlaws there. It is a beautiful facility, pretty serious spot. And they added another race this year. It's going to be a double header. So 2 nights in a row will be at Ohsweken. So that was a learning curve. I haven't done a whole ton of dirt racing, but we qualified 4th and had a little bit of a handling issue and finished 9th there, but really looking forward to going back there. I think we'll have a good car there, and really anything can happen. It's a whole ton of fun racing on dirt.
Yeah, my experience with dirt racing has been since we moved here to Pennsylvania. We're just a short ride from Williams Grove, which is a legendary sprint car track here in Pennsylvania. And one thing I've noticed with dirt racing, you're really steering with the gas pedal, right? It's getting that ass end around more than it is actually steering with the wheel.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of focus, and it is a different sport than you think of the progression from go-karts up to formula racing on the road courses. It is totally a different deal racing on the dirt there.
So, Gary, the Canadian Motorsports Park in Bowmanville, Ontario, I was blown away with the facility when I was your guest there just this past September. Ron Fellows, who is a highly accomplished racer in virtually anything on four wheels, is one of the owners of the track. And can you share with the audience the experience of coming to the race as a sponsor in a sponsorship role? I had some experience with that. It's a bit of a rock star access, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can attest to that. It's a pretty cool deal. Like, a big land developer bought CTMP, bought Mosport a couple years back now, and he spent $40 million on the facility. It is ridiculous.
It's
It
beautiful.
is the premier track in Canada, if not one of the premier tracks in the world for sure. And
No doubt.
the VIP access is really, really something to see. Like you were up there in the VIP suite looking over the whole track there. And
It's beautiful.
NASCAR is one of those sports totally unlike, baseball or hockey, where you go from the full VIP suite down to, the equivalent of the locker room. Come
Yeah.
hang out and shake hands with the driver after the race and get a
Yeah.
tour of the trailer and look inside the car and, the autograph session as we're about to go on the track, we're shaking hands and signing babies, minutes before we go out on the track. So
Yeah.
it is the full spectrum of experience, walking around kind of down in the pits up to, schmoozing and having a glass of wine while you watch the race.
Yeah. No, it was truly all of that. Absolutely a wonderful situation. And as you mentioned, the suites there with overlook the start finish line, overlook the pits. Just absolutely a fabulous facility for sure. I think it rivals certainly any NASCAR track, or even better. I always say the F1 tracks around the world are absolutely gorgeous. They're almost golf course like, right? Where NASCAR tracks, to be honest with you, if I were to be completely honest, they're very utilitarian, right?
Sure.
But the Canadian Motorsports Park, I was blown away. It was absolutely beautiful in every way.
Yeah, no, they've certainly done it right there. It is the crown jewel of racing in Canada, and they want to be able to bring big corporate sponsors there and it to be the equivalent experience, if not better, than having the box seats at the Leafs game.
Oh, no, no question. No question. Hey, look, Gary, one last question and I'll let you go. Your family's business in Georgetown, Ontario is Legendary Motorcars. Please tell us a little bit about the business. And I have been to your facility on a number of occasions and can attest that it is palatial. I think is the best description. But tell us a little bit about the business and what you and your dad and your family do there.
Yeah, really started kind of from the ground up. My dad, just as a kid growing up in Toronto, into kind of the street racing scene, buying and selling a few cars out of his driveway. And it was his passion, restoring muscle cars, hot rodding cars, and buying and selling them. And he's done that really since he was 15, and he'll be 60 this year, and has just grown the business. We're in 75,000 square foot facility, buying and selling hundreds of cars a year, doing full restorations on cars, some super high end cars, significant cars that have raced at Le Mans, to muscle cars,
Yeah.
all the way to modern supercar stuff. So really, really one of the bigger operations in North America, if not the world.
And I would recommend all of our viewers to go and visit Legendary Motorcars in Georgetown, Ontario. First of all, Gary and his dad and his crew are so welcoming, and it's just a blast. I don't even think you have to be a gearhead per se, because so many of these cars, Maserati MC20s and such, they are works of art, Gary, right? And some of them literally are in museums. And your place displays them so beautifully. And what's crazy, if you got the dough, you could actually buy them, which is kind of cool.
Absolutely. No, we work hard to make it a beautiful facility, and we host some nice events here, and the backdrop is millions of dollars worth of rolling art.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Well, Gary, we hope that Tosot Bathica will be one of those companies very, very soon that takes advantage of partnering up with you. And I cannot thank you enough for this opportunity for you to share your time and your experiences with our audience with Tosot Time. Gary, thanks so much, brother. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Jerry. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, man. It was so cool spending that time with Gary Klutt. So my pick of the month is going to be Gary and his dad, Peter Klutt's YouTube channel, which is Legendary Motorcar. So go to YouTube, type in Legendary Motorcar into the search bubble, and then subscribe to their channel because I guarantee you're going to love it. It's a blast. Great content in there. If you're a gearhead, it's an absolute must. Legendary Motorcar on YouTube. And here's a little taste of what you'll see.
Holy cow, this thing's like being shot out of a cannon.
20 years ago, we started doing TV, and now Gary's convinced me we need to do this on YouTube, so here we are. I'm Peter Klutt, and I started Legendary Motorcar 35 years ago.
I'm Gary Klutt, and I've been buying and selling cars for nearly half my life. I've been racing since I was 7 years old. And on the day I was born, my dad actually took me into the shop before he brought me home.
We're going to look at some of the coolest cars ever produced.
We're going to do a bunch of reviews, a bunch of drives. We're going to give you some process on what to do, what not to do, stuff you can do at home in your garage.
We're also going to look at some of the old footage from Dream Car Garage. We've got some familiar faces coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun to revisit some of that old footage. Whether it was a race car that was driven by Ken Miles, or if it's a story of the average guy that wanted one his whole life and finally got to own it. The stories are what makes the cars interesting.
So hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, do it right now, and then comment. Comment on the video, let us know what you want to see.
I'll tell you what I want to see. Get rid of that mustache.
What? I did it for Dale.
Every day is different at Legendary Motorcar, and we're going to show you the inner workings of the back shop, of the sales, the buys, the sells, the deals, and the people.
Hit subscribe now for great car content every week.